So, you mentioned, maybe it's a good segue, you talked about this idea of emotional hygiene. And I was actually lucky enough to join one of these classes when I was in Lincoln last time and just sit in and watch it. And I thought, it's a tool that you're utilizing with these folks who are justice involved. But I think there's a lot of benefits for everyone to think about this idea of emotional hygiene. Can you kind of unpack what you mean when you say emotional hygiene?
Emotional hygiene. Dave, when you get up in the morning, most people take a bath, they brush their teeth, wash up, put on clean clothes. If you get a cut from here to here, down to the bone, you're going to go to the hospital, right?
Absolutely.
And get it stitched up. Addicts, alcoholics, offenders, we tend to let it fester. We don't address it. But if you go that way for a year and it becomes infected gangrene, it becomes black and purple, then I decide to go to the doctor. The doctor's going to say, you know what? You should have came here a while ago. We're going to have to take that arm off. And if you would have waited, you would have been. But so when I learned about emotional hygiene, it's just as important as physical hygiene. So if you teach individuals how to process their emotions, or if you learn it, most people learn it. It's not called emotional hygiene, but most people learn it early on. And they know how to take care of when they have a emotional problem at home, or a lot of people do, and a lot of people don't too. But they know how to process it, validate their emotions, and they know how to make better decisions that benefit them based off of that processing of validating what's going on around you, knowing how you feel emotionally, how you're handling your emotions, and then based off of that, okay, what benefits me? A, B, and C. Okay, all right. Those things didn't work. Okay, go to D, F, and G. You go to your next one. So it's a simple cognitive tool of validating your own self and what you're going through emotionally. Because sometimes we think of when we get angry at something, we think that, we just get angry, see red. But it's usually fear, guilt, a shame, or one of the other 6 core emotions. Then if you understand that anger is a derivative, a secondary emotion based off of those other ones, then you can unpack it. Because if it's fear, or if it's a shame, if it's guilt, then you know where it's coming from. Then you know how to address it. But a lot of times we just think we get angry. But no, it's much more to it. And that's why you have to go back and kind of analyze it. But a lot of people learn it early on, and a lot of us don't. And that's why we turn to drugs and alcohol to deal with those emotions and that pain. And it leads to more self-destructive behavior and decision making. So emotional hygiene is basically cleaning and validating your emotions when maybe you don't have nobody else to. And a lot of times, Dave, people say in class, Jim, I wish I would have had this technique when I was a kid, when I was going through abuse, when my father was making me do sexual stuff to him. When I had nobody, I was in the house for days by myself, and all I had to eat was a loaf of bread. The pain that life throws us, we tend to we're real resilient at making it and putting our faces on, just like with my dad, my father, my uncles. I put that face on, and I got into that fight. And I didn't show those emotions, and I learned how that macho shit is supposed to work, and it just almost destroyed me, Dave. When my father passed away at 45, I was 20 something, and it was the first funeral I ever went to, and I didn't cry. I didn't cry until I was in prison 10 years later. That technique that volunteer showed me in prison helped me develop my emotional hygiene while I was in prison, and she helped me clean up what we call these emotional messes. And I used in class, Dave, you remember the house. If you had a house and you let a dog comes in and he poops in your house, all over your house, and you let that happen for a year, Dave, what happens to the house?
It's not going to be good in there.
The health department would do what?
Condemn it?
Yeah. And that's what they do to offenders and alcoholics. They condemn us because we're a threat to society and ourselves, and we have to be taken out. Now, you can argue too that the way Black neighborhoods are targeted by law enforcement, the war on drugs, from the Reconstruction age all the way up to now, we know that the law enforcement and correctional system is biased towards people of color and low income. So all these other factors also play into it. Even today with Black Lives Matter and seeing George Floyd having his oxygen cut off for the whole world to see. And that's why, Dave, when you talk about the emotional hygiene and how we need to, as a society, address those harms, until that happens, healing won't occur. I think we need to validate that as a society and what we're going through. And we refuse to do that as a society. This country refuses to validate that harm. If they were to use restorative justice in what we're going through now, we would be further along. And this hatred, this fear, because I had the talk with Brandon and my father had it with me in DC and Maryland. Yeah, you don't go driving in certain neighborhoods. And if you get stopped, you put your hands on the front on the dashboard or on the steering wheel and don't move, because you will get a bullet in the back of your head. Some people think this is a joke, but people have to live that way. And it's sad. It's sad. But that's why I'm hoping that restorative justice and what I do can expand to more areas, not just only in prisons, helping victims, helping justice involved individuals, but help our society as a whole. Yeah. So that's my, if I had any type of a goal, additional goals that I want to do before I retire, because everybody say, Jim, you need to be teaching this technique in schools. You need to be teaching this like reading, writing, and arithmetic. We don't do enough of it.
I'd agree. Yeah.
And they always tell me this, because I have this little thing about the technique, how to clean up the emotional hygiene, how to clean up the house. People say, I need extra copies of that because I need to send this to my son or send this to my daughters. Yeah. So it's been really rewarding, Dave. And that's why people say, don't you get tired of working on Saturdays every Saturday? Don't you get tired of working in the evenings? I said, no, because it's not work. And that's one joy that I have to always catch myself, because Cindy would tell you, I would work too much. And I don't, because it's not work. And that's really weird to say. But not really. I wish I would have found out years ago, Dave, that I like working with people. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I hope you enjoyed the short segments from a recent interview I did with a good friend and colleague, Dave Nadelman. To view the rest of the interview and to learn more about the Community Justice Center, check out our social media pages and visit us at communityjusticecenter.org.